Hello, welcome back to Trim Back Podcast, episode 2. Since I last recorded, there's been a crazy reception to what I'm attempting to do, and I just want to thank everyone for the support. Thank you for your kind words and comments and the engagement. It means the world to me that anybody is choosing to engage. There's always the fear of just not being sure if anyone's actually going to care or if anyone's going to listen or if whatever. And that's all just the self-doubt. But I'm really honoured that people care about what I have to say. So I just want to start off by saying how grateful I am for everyone giving it a go and that. So it's really, really cool. In today's episode, I want to talk about my experiences with anxiety and what that looks like for me day to day. In the last episode, we talked about my experience with depression and what that can look like. I find a lot of the time anxiety and depression get lumped together in the same sentence. And whilst it's reasonably common if you're experiencing one to probably experience the other, there's such different feelings. Depression can feel so incredibly all-consuming and can last a long time, whereas anxiety sort of comes in quicker waves. It does still feel all-consuming, but it doesn't feel exactly the same. My experience has been that anxiety is such a heightened awareness to a point where it's incredibly sickening. To me, it makes me so incredibly nervous about my perception from others and what other people are going to think of me and what I've been doing and whether it's enough. Had this experience maybe, it would have been about 3 months ago now. And I had a young fella in the chair. It was my first cut on a Saturday morning, and for anyone that knows me, I'm not much of a morning person. And we were talking just through the June school holidays, what you've been up to, and he wanted to talk about movies. And I told him that I'd recently seen Inside Out 2. And he was telling me all about the first one and how much he loved it and how much he learnt. And I don't think he fully quite grasped the concept of the importance of feeling all your emotions, and they all have their own place and that sort of thing. But he enjoyed the movie, and that was great. But he asked me in the second movie what the new character Anxiety did. And for me, as someone that's been through what I've been through, that was quite a complex question for 8:15 on a Saturday morning. And I needed to simplify it for an 8-year-old or young primary school kid to understand. And what I was able to come up with, after thinking for about 10 seconds, was anxiety makes you feel like you're not doing enough. And that was about as apt a description as I could give for how it makes you feel. There's so many circumstances in which you feel anxious, and trying to identify like where that's coming from can sometimes be really challenging. Whether it can be an environment you're stepping into, an activity that you're going to do, a certain social circle, work, exercise. There's all sorts of different stuff that you can feel it doing. And sometimes it doesn't make sense because you can do things a million times and know that you're pretty comfortable doing it and still get incredibly anxious. I've been cutting hair for 7 years now, and I still get really anxious going to work. I still get really anxious cutting regulars that I've been cutting for a long time. Because in my own head, I start to be like, oh, well, what if I did this time? And what if I did this time? And what if they didn't like it? And I just have so many destructive thoughts going on in my own head that I don't know where they come from. You know, like there's a sense of confidence that just seems to disappear sometimes. And as that sort of goes, like my awareness of everything starts to make me so incredibly nervous that it's hard to step out into functioning society. It's really quite challenging. And the hardest part is sometimes when you're not able to sort of explain what's going on, and it becomes really, really all-consuming to a point where, you can experience anxiety attacks, and they are so scary. I've had numerous in the last 4 years, probably going like well into double digits. And the first time I had one, I spoke about it in the previous episode, but I was sitting in work and just started crying in the back room, and my breathing became really quick. My heart rate was elevated, and to the point where I was gasping for air and feeling the walls closing in on this room that had plenty of space. And that feeling is so incredibly scary. It's really, really quite challenging to face something like that, because you feel helpless. You can't deal with it. You feel incapable of stopping it. You feel like you lose control of your own mind and your body, and things start to feel pretty helpless. But those feelings do pass, and each one that I've had, I've been able to identify the triggers that are getting there, that are getting me to that place that find it really, really difficult. Some of the things that I've been able to do have been being able to center my breathing, doing grounding exercises. So the one that seems to work for me the best is to close my eyes, think of a color, whatever color, it doesn't really matter. Open your eyes and then find 5 things in the room that are that color. I've found that brings me back to what I'm doing, brings me back to the room. The other thing, if I am not able to catch it at that point, and that doesn't work, the thing that I need to do is to have an ice cold glass of water, because the ice water lowers my heart rate, and that's something that helps. And sometimes I can try all those things and they still don't work, and I still end up having an attack, and I can't stop it. And that's quite scary, and it's scary for the people around me. I find a lot of the time I'm able to walk away and find some space before, and tend to have them on my own. There are a few people in my life that have seen me have them, and they're quite concerning. The look on my fiancée Natalie's face when she can sense that I'm having one. She's terrified because she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know if I need a hug or if I need space, if I need water, if I just need to let it out. Sometimes it is really challenging to know what to do. But the thing is that these moments pass, and the thing that's really helped the most, and this is something I learned from a very smart person that helped me a lot. His name is Rory, and he was talking to me about something called the window of tolerance. So basically what that is everybody has a certain bandwidth of things that they can put up with. And when you get close to the edges of your window, that triggers your fight or flight response. And from there, you either go hyper or hyposensitive. And that is not something in your control. It is a biological response to a situation. And through counselling, through psychology work, through my own research, and through changing circumstances in my life and understanding what my bandwidth is, I've been able to produce an environment that I feel a lot better in. And through counselling and psychology, I've been able to expand my window, which is the end goal. To be able to reduce these feelings. And sometimes over time things become like sometimes the window shortens and sometimes it opens. Like as I'm talking about this window, previously I would have had, in a previous life before I got sober, I would have had no problem going out, people having drinks. But earlier this year, Nat and I went to a Triple J Hottest 100 party, which is something that Nat's been doing for years. I've done, been to similar events in the past, and people were getting pretty rowdy, and I was finding it really challenging because I knew that I was an addict. And after this party, we were supposed to go out and celebrate a friend's birthday in the city. And Nat had had a few drinks, and I just could not cope. And I started to feel really anxious about the social situation that I was walking in, because I started to feel less than, because I was limiting my participation, because I knew that if I had a drink, I would end up shirtless, passed out, in a gutter, and probably vomiting on myself. And that's just not the life that I wanted to live anymore. But I was still in a phase of like, improving my tolerance for that sort of thing. And I needed to draw a line. So we were driving back from Frankston to Clifton Hill to go back to Richmond. And I said to Nat that I couldn't handle it. And I knew my social limit. And that's something that I'm really proud of that I was able to do. And I've had multiple moments like that. I had that with a close friend's baby shower that it was a social situation that I wasn't comfortable going into, and man, people understand. Like, people understand that there's a certain bandwidth that you're comfortable with. And I'm not saying live within your bubble, because some of life's greatest things are outside, but you got to know when you're in the headspace to push and to try something new and to give things a go. And you got to know when enough's enough. And that's a journey. Like, that's trial and error, and sometimes you get it wrong. You know, sometimes you don't know. When it's all new and anxiety's all new, it can be really hard to know what's too much and what's not. But you just got to try and know that the work that you're putting in every day to reducing these attacks and to expanding your window will lead to more opportunities. And that's something that I'm continuing to work on. And I know I'm not alone. I know that the general perception when I speak to people during the week and have them in the chair is that people understand that a social battery is a real thing, and you've got to look after yourself, and that sometimes pushing yourself too far, you either feel burned out, and if you're susceptible to feeling anxious, that can lead to those moments where you start to feel like, oh man, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough. Has this person's thoughts changed about me? And you know, it's really hard sometimes as people that don't sort of experience anxiety in this way. They go, I just don't care what other people think about me. And man, I'm kind of jealous of that life, because I do care. I do care what people think. I want people to respect me. I want people to look at me and think he's a good man. He's a good dude. He's a good barber. He's a good referee. He's a good friend. You know, he's a good son. He's a good brother. He's a good partner. And that stuff can be all-consuming sometimes, and it's so hard to find the balance of like feeling self-secure and confident and feeling not. And that's the balance. That's the balance that I'm looking for. You know, of not being too far one way or the other. Like, I don't want to be an arrogant man. I don't want to be someone that thinks I'm never wrong or doesn't have anything to learn. But I also don't want to be riddled with these feelings of feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. I want to be in the middle ground where I have confidence in my abilities, but I'm curious. I'm curious to get better, to learn, to know more. And that's what I'm striving to do, and that's what I've been working on for the past 3-4 years, is like finding that balance and trying to find my identity and not just be someone that has suffered, from depression and from anxiety. And that's the goal. That's why I'm doing this. Doing this to explain the process, because I know that I'm not the only one out there dealing with it. And for anyone that's experiencing anxiety to a point where they feel like they can't go out, they're nervous around their friends, man, that stuff's in your head. There's a disconnect in your brain, and it's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. I've gone from someone that vomited nearly every morning for about 4 years because I was so nervous to leave the house, going to a job that I was confident that I was good at, that I loved, and I could not explain this at all. Every morning I'd wake up and I'd be heading the toilet for 15 minutes, to the point where I needed to start setting my alarm earlier because I was having to pull over halfway when I was getting to work because I was needing a chunder. But that stuff's getting behind me. I don't need to be that person anymore. And I'm working so hard to make that less and less. And like, that stuff still happens to me, and probably will for a while still. But it's becoming less and less. Like, it's probably gone from being every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, to once a week, once a fortnight, having a really good run. Saying no to social things less, because I feel like I'm balancing myself a lot better. But it's such a learned skill. There's so many parts to it that you've got to find what that is and what that balance is for you. And I don't know if I found the exact recipe for myself, but that's what I'm working towards. Yeah, it's I just again want to reiterate that I feel really privileged to be in a position to be able to talk about this stuff, and I've been recovering for a long time. I feel like I've been able to sort of get from a point from suffering to recovering, and it'll always be a journey, but I'm well on the way, and I just want to thank everyone for the love. And I hope that in sharing my experiences and sharing my journey, that some people out there can get something from it. If you know anyone that you think this would resonate with, send it to them. Send it to them. If you felt like this, message me. Like, send me a DM on Instagram. Because you're not alone. No one's alone fighting the beast. We can tag each other in when we need to. We'll be like the Hardy Boys. But yeah, thanks for listening. We'll drop an episode next week. More than likely, probably talking about addiction and my experiences with it, and what that journey looked like. But yeah, follow along. The links are up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Yeah, spread the word, share it. That'd be awesome. I don't know how the algorithm works, but every other podcast I listen to says to leave 5 stars and follow and ring the bell and all that sort of stuff. So if you want to support, that would be excellent. But yeah, I appreciate the love regardless, and thanks for coming along for the journey.